So the first thing, an example of something that works in ancient Stoicism still today is what is sometimes referred to as the dichotomy of control. Epictetus says right at the beginning of the Enchiridion, some things are up to us and other things are not up to us. And then he gives two lists, one of things that are up to us, under our control, and another one of things that are not up to us, they're not under our control. And the lists are interesting because he says that under our control are very few things, really. Basically, our considered judgments, our endorsed values, and our decisions to act or not to act. That's it. Nothing else. Everything else, including health, reputation, career, relationships, wealth, all that stuff, it's not under our control. Now, this may sound like a very strange thing to say because, like, for instance, let's take health, right? Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, as everybody knows. And so health becomes particularly relevant kind of example. So in what sense is health not under my control? I can do all sorts of things to improve and maintain my health, right? In the middle of a pandemic, for instance, I can wear my masks, maintain social distancing, stay home as much as possible, avoid crowds, wipe down my groceries, sanitize my hands, all that stuff, right? And I do on a regular basis, right? That's great. Those are all things that are under my control because those are the results of my judgments, right? And those are the actions that I decide to put into place, right? Mm-hmm. However, the outcome, that is staying COVID-free, that's not up to me because despite all of that stuff, I could still get unlucky. As a biologist, I know viruses are sons of bitches. They're really tough little pieces of crap, and they can get you even if you're very careful, even if you're completely careful, because you're not completely isolated. Even if you do everything right, somebody may sneeze next to you without a mask at the supermarket, and you're done, right? And I have to go out of the supermarket because I have to eat. So there's no, or something may happen that, despite my best efforts, will make me sick. That's what Epictetus meant. He meant that the efforts are up to you. The outcomes are not, right? Now, this is also, by the way, a very common sort of notion that throughout different cultures. You find something similar to the dichotomy of control in 8th century Buddhism, 11th century Judaism, and in 20th century Christianity. Many people have heard of the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer is something that is adopted by 12-step organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance, right? And the prayer, essentially, which was written by a Christian theologian, American theologian at the beginning of the 20th century, essentially asks God the wisdom to tell the difference between the things that we control, that we can change, and the things that we cannot change, and then the courage to change what we can, and the serenity to accept what we cannot, right? Well, that's essentially Epictetus. And it's not by chance. As I said, the Stoics actually influenced Christianity throughout the centuries. Epictetus is essentially saying the same thing. This is very useful still today. Why is it useful? Because you can apply the dichotomy of control almost in everything you do in your life. I just gave you the example of a pandemic, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. But I can give you other examples. Let's say that I go up for a job interview, right? It comes natural to us to focus on the outcome. Will I get the job or will I not get the job, right? Epictetus says that's the wrong way to look at it. What you should be focusing on, because the outcome is not up to you. You are not the one that decides whether you're getting the job or not. Your potential boss is the one or the person who interviews you is the one that makes that decision. And that decision depends on a bunch of factors, many of which are not under your control. Like what kind of competition you have, for instance. There might be somebody more qualified than you are for the job. Or even, completely random things like maybe the interviewer got up on the wrong foot this morning because he had a bad night, or he had a fight with his wife or something like that. So he's in a bad mood and it's going to be a bad interview because of that. So what should you do? Well, you should focus your attention on the things that really are under your control, which include things like preparing well for the interview, putting together the best resume you can, make it so that you actually worked hard so that you really are a good person for that job or a good fit for that job. Focusing during the interview, not getting distracted, not drinking the night before the interview because otherwise you're not going to sleep or you're not going to be, alert, dressing appropriately for the interview, all of that stuff. So those are all your decisions. Those are all up to you, says Epictetus. And those are the only things you should be focusing on. For the rest, in terms of the outcome, you should prepare yourself mentally for the possibility that you may or may not get the job. As we all know in life, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Sometimes things go your way, sometimes they don't. And Epictetus basically is saying, behave like an adult, not like a child. You don't throw a tantrum if things don't go your way. If they don't go your way, you develop the serenity to accept that result. But at the same time, you also work on the courage to try to do the best thing you can. So that's a very important example of something from ancient Stoicism that still works perfectly today, and it's actually very, very, very useful. I mean, honestly, I cannot overstate how much the Dichotomy of Control changed my life. Once you start practicing it, and once you start, incorporating it into your normal way of thinking. Understanding it is not difficult. I just explained it to you. It's very easy. It's a very easy concept. Practicing takes time because, it's not like you just tell yourself, repeat the Enchiridion to yourself and then say, oh, okay, I'm fine. No, you have to internalize it, right? And that internalizing it does take time and effort. But once you do, it really does change your life.